And now I want to bring you more from southern Iraq. We've been showing you some of the live pictures. British forces have pretty much taken control of that key southern city, and there are also reports of uprisings in that city. Let's hear about it. Live update, Fox's Jonathan Hunt, who's in Kuwait City. Jonathan.
Hey, Bridget, the British grip on Basra is being tightened by the hour. Liberation is being delivered to the Iraqi people there, according to British officials, who also warned that despite the military successes, some difficult days may lie ahead. British troops have now moved into what they call the heart of Basra, and they say they are there to stay. Among the symbolic parts of the city already seized, the presidential palace compound, once a headquarters of the Fedayeen militia. US fighter planes hit suspected militia positions overnight, and by the time the British soldiers entered the palace gates, there was apparently little sign of life. Right now, British forces are sweeping through the old part of the city, a dangerous mission which has to be done in light armoured vehicles and on foot because of the narrow, winding streets in the area. Now, as the troops rolled into the city, they were greeted by cheering crowds. The local population finally convinced, it appears, that coalition forces are there to stay and Saddam Hussein's grip on power is over. That view bolstered by the news that Saddam Hussein's cousin, Ali Hassan al-Majid, is almost certainly dead. Al-Majid, one of the most notorious members of Saddam's inner circle, responsible for the gassing of Kurds in northern Iraq back in 1988, an attack which killed thousands and which earned him the dubious nickname Chemical Ali. Al-Majid was also linked to the crackdown on the Shiite population in the south after a Shiite uprising there after the 1991 Gulf War. His home in Basra was targeted over the weekend by coalition planes, and officials believe those airstrikes killed al-Majid, sending a very powerful message.
The significance of the fact that Chemical Ali has gone will show the people of southern Iraq, Basra, which was once his stronghold, that the regime is finished. It is over, and liberation is now here.
Now, that feeling of freedom does seem to be taking hold in Basra, where there are now reports of local people turning on the Fedayeen militia and also looting the state bank. This all coming 17 days after British forces first surrounded the city. As one British official told me earlier today, the local people first had to believe that Saddam Hussein's, quote, Ba'ath Party goons were done once and for all. That's the latest live from Kuwait City. Bridget, back to you.
All right, Jonathan, we thank you very much. And what Jonathan has been describing as happening in the southern city of Basra also seems to be happening in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, whereas we've been telling you for the past hour and a half or so, we've been getting reports from Iranian media and also from Kuwait media that there is a popular uprising underway now in the capital city of Baghdad. Our coverage will continue on that in just a moment. Also want to let you know about President Bush. He's looking ahead today. He's planning for a post-war Iraq as he meets with the British Prime Minister Tony Blair. A live report on their summit in Belfast, Northern Ireland, straight ahead.
Fox News Channel.
Into the heart of Baghdad. We're not on the outskirts. This is it.
Live, the latest on the war first.
This is Baghdad.
Fox News Channel. Real journalism, fair and balanced.
For any war crimes committed against U.S. personnel, our policy is that we will investigate and we will prosecute. We will also seek to prosecute where feasible those who committed or ordered war crimes against U.S. personnel during the Gulf War.
Heidi, they identified Saddam Hussein Uday as one of their key targets in this process. And of course, earlier today, the U.S. military again moved into Baghdad, maybe more than 100 vehicles, we are told, from the 3rd ID moving to the center of town, the deepest probe into the capital yet, and we're told there will be more of that. Heidi?
Barbara, I do have a quick question for you. I just want to remind everybody what we're looking at here on the screen and that live picture. This is southeast Baghdad, where there is a bridge, a key crossing over the Tigris River. We're waiting for the Marines to blow that bridge up. We, of course, will keep you posted on that. Marty Savage is standing by for that information. In the meantime, quick question for you. We're hearing that there are about 600 friendly fighters now in the south. We, of course, have seen this in the north with the Peshmerga Peshmerga. What can you tell us about what's going on in the south along that same lines?
Well, this all has emerged in the last few days, quite interestingly. More than 600 fighters, as you say. They are now known as the Free Iraqi Fighter Force. They were inserted into the south over the weekend. We are told they are made up of different ethnic groups from various areas of Iraq. They are opposition fighters, people who've been inside Iraq, and also people who are returning to Iraq. They are going to be in the south. They are going to be armed. They will be working with U.S. Special Forces. This may, we are told, be the beginning of a post-war Iraqi military, but it is already proving to be quite controversial because the well-known Iraqi National Congress leader, Ahmed Chalabi, is with them, and there is some opposition within Iraq to him because many Iraqis may feel he is being put in by the United States government. So this force is now in the south working with the U.S. military, but not clear whether they will be successful in really being a transition to a new Iraq. Heidi?
All right, the very latest from the Pentagon with Barbara Starr. Thanks so much, Barbara. Coming up in this hour of CNN's coverage of the war in Iraq, President Bush strolls across the White House grounds but has the most real estate to cover once he lands in Northern Ireland. There, Mr. Bush will meet with British Prime Minister Tony Blair to discuss the world's toughest conflicts, from Baghdad to Belfast to the Middle East. And the siege of Saddam's power base. Coalition forces pound former presidential strongholds and further chase Iraqi defenders from their entrenchments. We'll take a closer look at this day of breathtaking gains for the coalition. And what was once a crown jewel of the Iraqi regime is now a prized trophy of the Allies' advance into the capital. Still ahead, a closer look at the lifestyle of the rich and famous. You are looking now at some scenes here of coalition troops marching into Basra, the thumbs up signal from them.
Which can prevent any of the Iraqi leadership from coming or going. CENTCOM says they will continue to apply pressure to the Iraqi regime. That pressure coming in a show of force. U.S. tanks and APCs rolling on the parade grounds in the heart of Baghdad, intended in no small part to show the Iraqi population who is now in control. The coalition forces can go where they want, go when they want. U.S. CENTCOM staying away from the notion that the conflict is over. Here's Brigadier General Vince Brooks.
Even though the coalition has disrupted much of the regime's ability to wage war and its command and control systems, the regime retains some capability. The coalition continues attacks from air and ground to further erode the command and control of forces and to eliminate threats to coalition forces, Iraq's neighbors, and the Iraqi people.
The British officials here at Central Command not confirming these field reports that Ali Hassan al-Majid, better known as Chemical Ali, had been killed in an airstrike using laser-guided weapons. Here are the British commanders on that.
They're going to lose their grip through fear and violence. Only this time the violence is finally focused by us on the regime, not the Iraqi people, and the fear is in their minds. Whether Chemical Ali was an absolute victim of that, it's difficult to say. As you well know, we've recovered some bodies from the site, but positive identification is ongoing, though I have to say that open sources locally in Basra say that's the man.
In Basra, the second largest city in Iraq, the Brits are confirming reports of insurgencies there, some bloodletting as they put it. This coming in the form of some looting and old scores being settled with members of the Fedayeen militia. In one way, the Brits consider that to be a positive development. It shows that the noose is off the necks of the Iraqi population, or the Shiite population in the city of Basra, and they feel they now have an opportunity to rebel against those forces that had oppressed them for so long. In another sense, it is a very bad development, according to the Brits, because it is continued violence. And when you have these Shiite rebels fighting against members of the Fedayeen militia, it's virtually impossible for the coalition forces to tell who is Fedayeen, who is a Shiite rebel. Bridget, back to you.
All right, Mike Tobin, thanks a lot. Well, developments in Operation Iraqi Freedom sure have been fast and furious this morning. And now, as we've been telling you, we've been getting word through the morning about what our military planners really have been waiting for, that the people of Iraq are rising up against Saddam Hussein in the capital city. Let's talk about that this morning with our next guest, retired Air Force Lieutenant General and Fox News military analyst Tom McInerney. General, thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks, Bridget. Good to be here.
Is there the chance that they might finish the job for us?
I don't think so, Bridget. They're going to help, but it's really our forces that are going to make it happen, and that's happening right now. It's a very dynamic situation, but it's happening just exactly how we'd like to play it out. Let's take a quick look at the screenwriter so we can update everybody what's happened.
Sure thing.
We have pockets, what you saw last night, where we seized the presidential complex there. We also have the Marines moving in here, and they've crossed this tributary, and they're seizing this area out here. And of course, you know, we have the airport where a battle went on last night, and 100+ people were killed on the enemy side. Now, this is very important because let me show you what's going behind the scenes. We have Global Hawk sitting up there, and that is a unmanned aerial vehicle, and that is got with it fighters and bombers of all services with a menu of different weapons. They've got laser-guided bombs, they've got electro-optical or TV-guided bombs, and they've got some global positioning system bombs, satellite-guided bombs that can go through the weather. Now, these are very important for us because they, in fact, are we have bad weather over there right now today, so we're having to use the GPS weapons. But the objective is clearly to expand these areas that we have got and force the enemy to attack us. And they'll do that tonight. You're going to see a pretty significant firefight probably at all 3 locations, and it may be their dying gasp. And that's what we want them to do. A lot are fleeing now. The leadership is fleeing, but they're going to have the irregulars, the special security forces, make one major attack before they get out of town. And I think that over the next several days, you'll see this thing develop very well. We'll expand those areas that we've gone in, the presidential complex on the west side, and on the east side, where the Marines have taken over. And this urban close air support, which most people have never heard of this term, was practiced at Nellis Air Force Base before this conflict began. I talked to one of the senior air commanders, the senior air commander yesterday, and he told me what a magnificent joint effort this has been. And it's been so joint, probably the most joint operation in the history of warfare. Now, what we're going into is in the close-in battle, where our air power is not so dominant, but it is still very significant because the ground forces can use lasers to designate targets either way we want to go.
All right, General, want to thank you so much. Certainly do appreciate it, and we'll be checking back with you throughout the day, I'm sure of that. And straight ahead here on Fox News Live, we will take you inside Saddam Hussein's palace in Basra, a lavish building taken over by British forces in that area. We'll show you the pictures. Also, as coalition forces take hold of Baghdad, are there still fears of biological or chemical attacks? We'll be talking with a Gulf War veteran about what our troops could be going through right about now.
Or is it successfully?
Well, I think it can be done, but it's going to require magnanimity on the part of the U.S. administration, and it's going to require some flexibility on the part of the French and Germans and Russians who opposed this war, and those qualities have been sadly lacking to date. But if they were to try to come together, there is a way to do this, and the way to do this is to have the period in which Jay Garner, the retired American general, is running the country be as short as possible, and find a way, perhaps with the involvement of the Secretary General of the United Nations, to get a group of Iraqis, both inside and outside Iraq, to come together in some interim authority, some interim Iraqi government that would then be legitimized by the United Nations Security Council, not as a permanent government, not as the final government. That would come much later after some elections or some other processes to choose the Iraqi government, similar to what we did in Afghanistan. But if the United States insists on running the country for many, many months before transitioning to some Iraqi group that would then be able to be endorsed by the UN, that's going to be a big problem. Because what is not understood well in America, I don't think, is that unlike the war, where the United States and the British, if they didn't like what was happening on the second resolution, could just throw their hands up and say, we tried, and then go to war. In the case of the post-war period, this time the British, the Germans, the French, the Russians, they have leverage. They have a need to endorse the lifting of economic sanctions on Iraq and the allowance of international reconstruction to go in and take control of the assets there. That can't be done without the acquiescence of the opponents of this war. So both sides have to find a way to work together.
Jamie, I got to get back to our embeds, but quickly here, you mentioned a short period of time before it's handed back to the Iraqis. How do we define that? Paul Wolfowitz said yesterday perhaps 6 months. In your estimation, what is a safe amount of time before the Iraqis really start getting ticked off and saying, we want our country back?
Well, I think what Wolfowitz was talking about was 6 months until you get to the legitimate Iraqi government, the government that's selected by the Iraqi people. I don't think he ruled out some period like 6 weeks where the Americans would take over, run the industries, run the ministries, run the oil production, get things started, allow the UN to deliver aid, and during those 6 weeks you'd have to select a group of Iraqis that would then be endorsed after that 6-week period by the Security Council. That's the way to unlock the puzzle.
Okay. Got it. Jamie, thanks. Jamie Rubin in London. We'll talk again, I am certain. Earlier today, just a few minutes ago, I mentioned this bridge near Basra. I misspoke completely. I meant Baghdad. Southeast of Baghdad, we do believe this is over a canal that feeds into the Tigris River. Marty Savage, embedded with the Marines, is providing us this image here, along with his photographer, Scott McGuiney, by way of video phone. We are told perhaps within 3 minutes the Marines might be ready to detonate this bridge. Damage, we're told, as a result of fighting over the past 24 hours. Before we get back to Marty by telephone, Lisa Rose Weaver is situated just outside of Baghdad, I believe. Lisa, what's happening there?
Well, yes, Bill, I'm just at the perimeter of the international airport. In the distance to my northeast, I can hear the 3rd Infantry exchanging pretty heavy artillery there with Iraqi forces at the front line. I'm not sure exactly how far away that is from me. Several kilometers. It's not anything that I can see, but I can certainly hear it. Meanwhile, we arrived here. I'm embedded with a Patriot missile battery. It arrived here a few hours ago, and some of the forces here found some old bunkers that the Republican National Guard had apparently left in very much of a hurry. They found quite a lot of unused ammunition, no evidence of chemical weapons, although there were gas masks thrown on the floor along with clothes and food, some old bread and potatoes, and strangely baby formula, which one of the investigators here speculates the Republican National Guard may have been eating for nutrients, assuming that bread and potatoes was all else that they were eating. It happens to be fairly quiet now, but again, intermittent artillery exchange between the 3rd ID and Iraqi forces off to my north. Bill?
Lisa, thanks. Lisa Rose Weaver, again, embedded right near Baghdad. Back to Marty now. Marty, have those vehicles moved out? Are we ready for what we're awaiting now?
Well, I believe we are, Bill. They have lit this actually using det cord and what they call sort of igniters. So it's not like somebody standing by with a button to push. This is the boat that you may have seen earlier underneath the pylons there. What they did was they rode up there, the demolition experts, and then they trigger the igniters, which is really just like, well, a little more sophisticated than flint against steel. But we're told it should be pretty close now, and they had a 10-minute fuse, and they measured out. So, like I say, it's not down to the exact second of science. There are a lot of Marines that have gathered here for this event, probably not the most significant event in this war, but it is something they know is going to happen, and the Marines do like to see things go. They're always willing to look at the action, so we'll wait.
Marty, as we await, I'm assuming this bridge is beyond repair. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say.
I would say I'm right.
The concussive force just from this vantage point was pretty strong. And now we're going to wait and see just to make sure nothing's going to come flying out of the blue onto our head. The smoke has completely obliterated the bridge site, and the flash was so intense I'm having a hard time focusing my eyes, but we will give it a few seconds here to wait for the smoke to clear. I got a cheer from the Marines. They obviously were impressed by that. Clearly the demolition guys didn't hold back on any of their charges on this, judging by the force of the explosion and the way we felt it here. We're just looking and waiting for the smoke to clear. But I think you could probably safely say, judging by that, it's been mission accomplished. Now, the idea was not to bring down the whole bridge, just bring down that center span. And as the dust clears, I think you can start to see that they achieved just that, Bill.
Wow. Marty, back up a little bit. Heavy, intense fighting over the past 24 hours that led to the damage for that infrastructure, for that bridge. Hang on a second, Marty. I believe we've got let's go back a second here for our viewers and roll it again without me talking this time and watch it.
And so we'll wait. Yeah, I would say...
Right after that explosion, you can hear the Marines give up that holler. Hey, Marty, take us back to real time right now. What happened 24 hours ago with the intense fighting around that bridge?
I should also note there are two interesting developments that we've seen over the last couple of days regarding the Shia support for the U.S. and coalition forces. Now, we saw a fatwa issued by the Ayatollah, the supreme leader in Najaf, saying that his people should not rise up against U.S. and coalition forces. They should actually support them. We also saw that the Ayatollah in Iran, who is in exile, he is the Shiite resistance movement leader. He has vowed now to come back from Iran to Iraq. Obviously, there are two key elements that show that the Shia population is gaining some, finding some support and believing that the Americans are here to stay and that the regime of Saddam Hussein is actually crumbling. So they will put forward their support and help in the toppling of this administration. Let me quickly just go back to some of the developments today. We saw U.S. forces enter Baghdad. We saw them attacking the seat of Saddam Hussein's authority, the nucleus of his power. More than 70 U.S. tanks, 60 Bradley fighting vehicles took part in the raid. Columns upon columns of American power taking control of some of the most prominent symbols of Saddam Hussein's iron-class regime. We saw two lavish presidential palaces now in U.S. control, and the Central Parade grounds also secured. We also saw, as you mentioned, the propaganda war continuing. Information minister today saying U.S. forces aren't in Baghdad. Meanwhile, they were just some 100 yards away. He said Baghdad was safe and that the Iraqi citizens were winning this war. Back to you.
All right, Jennifer Eccleston with that report. Jennifer, thank you. Dave?
Meanwhile, in the south part of Iraq, British troops have taken over Saddam Hussein's palace in the city of Basra. More on that now from reporter David Bowden. He's with our sister network, Sky News.
Come with me and let me show you what Saddam Hussein has spent some of his smuggled oil revenue on. This, remember, just one of his palaces here in Basra. You go through the big, heavy front door and into a vast entrance hallway. On the floor, as everywhere throughout, marble flooring and intricate detailing. As we move towards the stairs, you can see throughout the house more marble, more beautiful woodwork, beautiful paneling. Every tray on the stairs is marble, as far as I can work out. The detail on some of the paneling is magnificent. Somebody spent a lot of time and a lot of Saddam's money on detailing all of this beautiful, beautiful marquetry. If you move around the corner, the crunch of glass. When the military came in here, they weren't to know that there was no opposition. But when they got here, Saddam wasn't at home. Again, perhaps ironic given what's happened. Is that a white dove of peace on Saddam's wall? Who knows? Moving further up, again, we're taken in just by the vast size of the area of this place. But for me, the best part of this house, the most beautiful part, is the at all. Nobody has lived here, certainly in the last few months, I suspect, probably never. But if you wanted to go to the loo while we're here, there's one for every room, and not just any old toilet. This is what passes as a WC in Saddam's house. I'm no expert, but these fittings look, at the very least, to be made of gold plate, if not the real McCoy all the way through. But let me show you, when they say buying a house is all about location, 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 look at the location Saddam built his house here in Basra. Again, as we wander through, marvel detailing, the beautiful floor work, the beautiful detailed tooling on all this woodwork. But then coming to what must be a sunroom, somewhere to take your afternoon tea while you're talking to your generals. And walk out here onto the terrace and you'll see the beautiful vista, the palm trees in the distance, and in the forefront, the Shatt al-Arab, boats ploughing up and down it. That way you can see the small fishing vessels, and if we pan round to the other side, down there is downtown Basra. And who lives in a place like this? Well, Saddam Hussein lives in a place like this. That's who.
Or he used to, anyway. No longer. Well, British troops now control much of Basra, the city that you just saw. It is Iraq's second largest city.
And you saw those palaces, but what about the people? With little water and food to go around, Iraqi civilians are reported hungry and thirsty, but help is on the way. Stay with us. Our coverage continues in a moment.
What can a Tyrannosaurus? Palace grounds, and the barracks were heavily bombed by coalition aircraft. Of course, the military says they don't target necessarily individuals, but it appears clearly that they're after Saddam Hussein and his regime. Chris?
Let's check in on the home front now. NBC's Donna Gregory is at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. 14 Marines from there have died in action during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Donna, good morning.
Good morning again, Chris. You know, it is a gray, rainy day here in Jacksonville, but actually the mood is pretty upbeat here in the towns around Camp Lejeune. As you mentioned, at least a dozen, possibly 14 Marines from this base and surrounding bases have been killed in combat. This base has seen more than its share of combat deaths in Operation Iraqi Freedom. But when you consider that 20,000 Camp Lejeune Marines or thereabouts are deployed in this effort, it's no surprise that some may be lost. Of course, it's tragic. People in this town really stand behind the military. You can't drive anywhere without seeing businesses with their marquees lit up. We support our troops. There are banners, there are signs. There are even special discounts for military families who are left behind during the deployment. We do want to show you some pictures of one of the efforts that was organized over the weekend. It was 2 Marine wives who wanted to do something to support the troops. They actually organized a walk. It was a 1-mile walk here in Jacksonville, and they called military bases across the country and also had support from walkers at many different bases from the East Coast to the West Coast. The walk in Jacksonville was so big it had to be moved from the sidewalk into a lane of traffic, which of course was closed. People brought their children in wagons, they brought pets, they carried flags and signs, and of course those yellow ribbons that you see everywhere. Incidentally, the organizers, those 2 Marine wives, say their husbands enlisted after September 11th. They wanted to fight in the war against terrorism. While they laugh that their husbands are in their early 30s and are among the oldest lance corporals in the Marines. Their troops call them Grandpa and Dad, and they love it. They say they wanted those Marines to know that they do support them, that they're behind them, and they're hoping for their safe and quick return here to the States. Also on Friday, the town organized a rally in support of the troops at the old train depot where we're standing right now. It was much better weather on Friday night. People again brought their children, waved flags, held banners. There were patriotic songs, prayers, speeches, all in support of the troops. They really do have a spirit of unity here in Jacksonville with the Camp Lejeune Marine Base, which is next door. Very difficult to find a person who will say anything negative against the military effort in Iraq. Chris, that's the latest here in Jacksonville. Now back to you.
Donna Gregory, thank you so much. John?
Now, Chris, the latest in Operation Iraqi Freedom and a check of some of your other headlines, including some surprising news about airline customers coming up. And as we go to break, a look at a British Army helicopter as it passes a fire in the Rumalia oil fields yesterday.
Even a seaplane teaches about financial advisors. The best ones take you where others can't. At Wachovia Securities, we learn from the world around us. Because regardless of conditions, investment opportunities can be found. Together, we can achieve uncommon results. Wachovia Securities.
That's the very latest up to the second. I'm Eric Shaw.
The Army's 3rd Infantry Division in the forefront of the Battle of Baghdad, very much in the danger zone as coalition forces face the continued threat of biological and chemical weapons. Joining us with some insight about this is Sergeant Brad Baker, a former U.S. Army Ranger with the 3rd Infantry Division and a veteran of the 1991 Gulf War. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. I was a former Army Ranger, and I was with the 82nd Airborne during the first Gulf War.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I had the wrong information here, but it's very good to have you here. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what it's like right now to be one of the troops heading into Baghdad, where obviously you didn't do that in '91, but just what's going through your head when you know that you might still face one last dirty trick from Saddam Hussein's regime.
Well, I think I was privileged enough to be here last night as we got those live feeds from Greg Kelly as they went onto the palace grounds. And Colonel Hunt and myself both said, you know, it's a time where the soldiers just feel all that energy just explode. I mean, they've done what people said they couldn't do. They made it in 14, 15, 16 days, over 600 miles, and now they're sitting in Baghdad. Yeah. It's a great time for the coalition forces and the United States Army and the 3rd Infantry in particular. Mm-hmm. But what has to happen now is you need to put your emotions back into check, and you need to remember, hey, you know, we just scored a big touchdown, but there's still a lot of the football game left to go. Right. And you need to start getting your security ready and be ready for the counterattacks like they have seen last night, and they're going to see, or yesterday, and they're going to see tonight.
Right. And that said, what kind of image do you want to present? There was a lot of talk when the war started that we didn't want to seem like conquerors. We wanted to seem like liberators, an important distinction there to be made.
Well, I think it's a very important distinction. A lot of times we've seen where troops may have been going to put the American flag and raise it on certain buildings, and the officers have stepped in and said, no, we're liberating, we're not occupying. And I think that this is something that has really been pounded into the troops, is that we're liberating, we're not occupying. But right now, you know, last night there was a lot of joyous occasions. There were Georgia Bulldog flags being shown. There was a lot of talking about taking a shower in Saddam's shower. Mm-hmm. And you just have to understand that these guys haven't been able to express anything for such a long time. Now they're putting everything back into check. They're getting their secondary, 3rd, 4th missions, and they're starting to go back to work now. Mm-hmm. This is a time where they're really going to have to focus in, stay disciplined, because they're going to have everything, including Saddam's kitchen sink, thrown at them right now.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, there must be an incredible amount of energy when you look at all the achievements that they've made in such a short time, when you really put it into the larger perspective. And yet, Sergeant, there's got to be some physical exhaustion, having come so far, literally.
You know, that's 2 parts. The emotions and the adrenaline that they've been running on, after probably about the 5th or 6th day, that's all it's been, is adrenaline and emotions. And as they made this charge, I mean, obviously we didn't know when the timing was, but they knew when the timing was, and the adrenaline and their emotions took over again. You know, right now they're in probably one of the toughest situations, because they've committed themselves. They're now in the middle of Baghdad, and they've got to stay alert in order to stay alive. And this is going to be a true test of the coalition forces. Mm-hmm. And just how strong they are.
Being a veteran of 91, how did you feel about this war?
Myself, personally speaking, I think that this has just been a great accomplishment. I think that we've seen a lot of first-time events. I mean, we've seen we've seen news journalists embedded with the troops. I mean, some of these photos that we've been getting are just unheard of. I don't know that when we were over there the first time we would have ever considered doing anything like this. The technology has certainly been increased. The information, special operations, I mean, they've all done a lot of training because we have been here before, and it's afforded them the opportunity to use that experience to train for this time. And I think they've done an excellent job. I personally believe that this was the right thing to do. That's just my personal point of view. Nobody really cares about that.
Well, we care because you were nice enough to come and talk with us today. And Sergeant Baker, again, you were with the 82nd Airborne, you said?
Yes, ma'am. During the Gulf War, I was.
Okay, want to give the right folks credit here. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
And before we go to Jonathan Hunt in Kuwait with some breaking news on what's happening in southern Iraq, I want to tell you about something that's happening right here. Of course, overwhelmingly, the United States public supports the war, supports the efforts of our forces over there, doing the hard work that very few could actually do. But meanwhile, there are still protests around the world, and some here. There was a protest in Oakland. We're just getting word that police, apparently something happened inside the group of protesters, or perhaps a confrontation with police. Police apparently opened fire on Monday morning with rubber bullets at either the protesters or people that were with the protesters. According to initial reports at the Port of Oakland, several longshoremen who were standing nearby have been injured. Now, again, we don't have much more information than that, but we'll try to bring it to you either through one of these direct reports or on the bottom of the screen there. Now, meanwhile, Brits, as we've been telling you, are finally rolling in full force to that southern city of Basra. They still, however, face scattered resistance. A live report from Fox's Jonathan Hunt. He's in nearby Kuwait City. Jonathan?
Hi guys, as the Brits break the back of the Iraqi regime in the south, they may have got one of Saddam Hussein's most notorious henchmen, the man known as Chemical Ali. Ali Hassan al-Majid is Saddam Hussein's cousin and is said to be responsible for some of the worst of the Iraqi regime's atrocities. Among those atrocities, the gassing of Kurds in northern Iraq in 1988, an attack which killed thousands. Al-Majid was also linked to the brutal crackdown on the Shiite population after the first Gulf War back in 1991. His home in Basra was targeted by coalition aircraft over the weekend, and coalition officials believe that they did kill al-Majid, sending a powerful message to the people of Basra and beyond that the Iraqi regime's reign is quickly coming to an end. The British grip on Basra, meantime, is being tightened by the hour. Liberation is, according to British officials, being delivered to the Iraqi people, although those same officials warn that despite the military successes, some difficult days may lie ahead. British troops have now moved into what they call the heart of Basra, and among the symbolic parts of the city already seized are the presidential palace compound, once a headquarters of the Fedayeen militia. Fighter planes hit suspected militia positions overnight, and by the time the British troops arrived at the palace gates, there was apparently very little sign of life. Right now, British forces are sweeping through what is known as the old part of the city. They're doing that in light armoured vehicles and on foot. It's a dangerous mission, but it has to be done that way because of the narrow streets around that area. Now, as the British troops rolled into the city, they were apparently greeted by crowds cheering and waving, clearly pleased to see coalition troops in the heart of downtown Basra, and clearly finally believing that the reign of Saddam Hussein and his brutal henchmen in Basra may be coming to an end. There are reports now coming through of local people turning on local militias there and killing them. It does seem that the end of the Iraqi regime in Basra is upon us right now. That's the latest live from Kuwait City. Back to you guys in New York.
All right, Jonathan Hunt in Kuwait. Jonathan, thanks.
And as we've been saying all through the morning, so many new developments, and I want to get you up to speed now on how Wall Street likes it or doesn't. And Brenda Butner is joining us now. They seem to like it, no?
Absolutely. Stocks shooting higher right from the opening bell. The market's ready to rally as swiftly as the allies are marching through Baghdad. The hope on Wall Street is that the end of the war will come quickly now. What are the latest numbers nearly halfway through the trading day this Monday morning? Well, there's the Dow. It's up 176 points. The Nasdaq gaining 36. The S&P better by about 18. As is the case with many up days, volume is on the heavy side. We often see light days for down days these days. The dollar also rallying, the greenback at a 2-week high against the euro, but oil is falling again as the allies march on Baghdad. The price of crude now well below $30 a barrel. Gold has lost its glitter too. This often happens when stocks start to shine again. In fact, all of the Dow's 30 components are in the green except for AT&T. Aluminum giant Alcoa, one of the best performers, the blue chip, posted a better than expected first first quarter earnings report after Friday's closing bell. Home Depot is also repairing its battered share price, rising more than 1% after an analyst for Bank of America raised its estimates and price target. And internet portal Yahoo also up on an upgrade. It will open its books to Wall Street this Wednesday. We're really starting to get into earnings season. And it looks like the little guys are getting back into the market, if on a small scale. Mutual fund tracker TrimTab says it is turning fully bullish as it notes that U.S. equity funds had more than $1.5 billion of inflows over the 5 days ending Thursday. That's the third straight week of modest inflows. It's not a major reversal, but still better than the 10-month string of small investors yanking out their money. That's your business report. Now back to coverage of Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Okay, Brenda, thank you for the update.
And our commander-in-chief is on his way to Northern Ireland. He is there for a meeting with perhaps our most stalwart ally, at least in my lifetime, Tony Blair. He has stood with us through this thick and thin, as well as his troops who've been doing a spectacular job. The president should be arriving in about an hour in Northern Ireland. We will cover that live right here on Fox.
And balanced Fox News Channel. From the Pentagon, revealing interviews, rare insight with the military, exclusive reporting, live from the front line with our troops, breaking news. Throughout the region, the pulse of the Mideast made clear. Fox News Channel, real journalism, fair and balanced.
Operation Iraqi Freedom, the U.S. troops pushing right into the heart of Baghdad, and our folks are with them, taking control of Saddam's main palaces.
I'm sorry. I'm Major Garrett at the Pentagon. I'll have more details on Operation Iraqi Freedom when we come back.
British troops tighten their grip on Basra, and coalition airstrikes may have killed the man known as Chemical Ali, one of Saddam Hussein's most notorious henchmen. I'm Jonathan Hunt in Kuwait City. I'll have that story coming up.
As U.S. troops roll through the capital, why is Saddam's regime still saying that Saddam is in control? Those stories and all the breaking news, we've got a lot of it right here on Fox News Live. U.S. troops have stormed into two of Saddam Hussein's palaces. We've got some pictures now brought to us by our own Greg Kelly and Mal James. Been doing a spectacular job in Iraq. Images that give us a look at Saddam's lifestyle. A report now from Greg Kelly. And of course, he was one of the first to go into those palaces in Baghdad.
They took the palaces of Baghdad. Shortly after 6 o'clock this morning, the 2nd Brigade Combat Team of the 3rd Infantry Division roared into town. This time, it isn't a raid. They're staying. Two of Saddam Hussein's palaces and the National Parade Grounds, sites that have huge symbolic significance under coalition control. We're at one of the palaces now. It was heavily damaged in last month's airstrike. Debris and rubble everywhere inside, but so are signs of opulence. Marble floors, ornate chandeliers. But sitting in Saddam's old palace may not be enough. The battle continues. Heavy fighting in downtown Baghdad, mostly with suicide fighters. Trucks laden with explosives attempting to ram the side of tanks and Bradleys. And airstrikes continue to pummel the city. It was a huge day for coalition forces, but the fighting rages on. They're telling us that they have a lot of work left to do. From Baghdad, Greg Kelly, Fox News.
Meanwhile, coalition forces are battling for Baghdad itself for the full control of the city, and the Brits say they have taken much of Basra in the south. Let's get a live report now from Major Garrett. He joins us from the Pentagon. Hi, Major.
Yeah, somewhat less startled, Major Garrett, than I was just a second ago, David. Sorry about that. It's a fluid reporting environment here at the Pentagon, and sometimes the live camera turns on just a little bit earlier than I expect. Here's what we know, and I want to give our viewers the benefit of a conversation I just had just a few moments ago with a senior defense official on so many of the breaking issues that have occurred today throughout Iraq under Operation Iraqi Freedom. First, the reports about a potential popular uprising in the capital city of Baghdad. Senior defense official now tells Fox that, quote, "We know very little. We have heard these reports. We can say as a general principle that Iraqis are coming forward in increasing numbers throughout the country to show their displeasure with the regime and to rise up. But as for Baghdad itself, we have very, very little significant or concrete information to confirm these reports. The Pentagon basically is aware of them. They're trying to confirm them, but they are also being cautious because they know a couple of weeks ago in Basra there were similar reports of a popular uprising that turned out, A, to be not as numerous or as large as earlier indicated, and also turned back down quite ruthlessly by the Fedayeen Saddam forces still within that southern city of Basra. Pentagon is aware that this could be what's happening now. They don't know for sure, just taking a very cautious approach to what may be happening in Baghdad itself. As to a couple of other issues, there are preliminary reports that have been reviewed by senior defense officials here at the Pentagon about the discovery of a possible chemical weapons site near Hindiya. Coalition forces were led to this site, at least initially, by conversations that they had with enemy prisoners of war from the Iraqi regime. There is a site exploration team there now, and the early reports at the Pentagon is that there may be something promising, that is to say, something indicative of chemical weapons there at the site. There have been embedded media reports suggesting that sarin has been found there. Pentagon not confirming that, trying to be very careful as well on this score, because they want to be sure if a facility is found, they want to know what's there in what quantities to be able to explain that discovery to the world. One other key point before I give it back to you, David. There's been a lot of talk here at the Pentagon about what may or may not occur after Baghdad falls. Will there have to be a military confrontation in Saddam Hussein's hometown of Tikrit, to the north of Baghdad? I'm told by a senior defense official that right now the Pentagon has no information that any leadership figures within the Saddam Hussein regime have tried to make an escape to Tikrit, nor is there any signal in Tikrit itself that that city will try to stage a last final battle on behalf of the regime. But the Pentagon is watching the situation very, very closely. It hopes that when Baghdad is completely conquered or dealt with militarily and the Iraqi political dictatorship falls, that will be the last battle, but they are still saying possibly there could be more fighting ahead in Tikrit. That's the latest from the Pentagon, David. Back to you in New York.
All right, Major Garrett, thanks very much. Let's go right to one of our embedded reporters now. Of course, over the past 24 hours particularly, but during this whole thing, they've been doing an unbelievable job. Our own Rick Leventhal is traveling with the 1st Marines 3rd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. Rick, do you hear us okay?
Yeah, I hear you, David. We've been on a bit of a journey this evening, moving closer to Baghdad. We're, I'd say, roughly 10 miles from the city on one of the major highways that leads into Baghdad. We are moving to take up a new position to provide sort of a security perimeter around the outskirts of the city to protect the forces that are inside the city and around the city limits from a possible attack from the rear. We have seen numerous incidents over the past couple of days where there were still active soldiers or rebels amongst the locals out in the farmland surrounding Baghdad. The LAR has been busy blowing up whatever remnants they may come across, blowing up tanks and light armored vehicles that the Iraqis have parked or tried to hide in trees and in fields. They've also destroyed a number of heavy artillery pieces, anti-aircraft weapons, and that sort of thing. That kind of activity continues. There's also an airfield that's been set up on the outskirts of Baghdad that the Marines are now guarding and getting ready to use to bring in supplies and support. But in the meantime, the 3rd LAR is now, we have just pulled off the side of the road and are setting up for the night, but this journey will continue. An interesting note, David, as we were driving towards Baghdad, we saw a steady stream of locals driving the other way in Bobcats, those little like construction vehicles with a small like backhoe on the front, and many of them are loaded down with generators. Clearly, there's been some looting going on. We've seen other evidence of that. We saw people looting a military compound that we passed a couple days ago, but in this case, these look like brand new construction vehicles, new Bobcats, little ones, that they're driving down the highway, and in the scoops and on the backs, they piled up brand new generators, and we saw probably 40 or 50 generators and well over 15 to 20 of these Bobcats.
All right, Rick, I hate to ask you, but if you could just stand by, we've got some local news, that is national news. We have to bring our viewers as well as we're looking at live live pictures, not right now. This is Abu Dhabi television. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. This is Abu Dhabi. These are live pictures coming from Baghdad. Apparently, this is some pretty heavy shelling going on. This is within Baghdad itself. You can actually see the ground shake. You can't often see that when you see these bombs happening. They're usually far enough away so that the camera is stable. What you're hearing in the background is the Arabic reporter from Abu Dhabi. Of course, we don't have a translator on hand. We don't know precisely what he's saying, but this bombing was close enough to where the camera is set up so you could actually see the camera shake while that explosion was going off. That was a ground-shaking explosion. We don't know what kind of armaments they're using. We don't know precisely where this is. We do know that the weather conditions were less than perfect. They certainly didn't seem to be as bad as the sandstorms 2 weeks ago. But Rick Leventhal, since you're pretty much in the same weather system right now as downtown Baghdad, what's it like there weather-wise?
It's very cloudy and overcast. It was raining a short time ago, and that's the first rain we've seen since that sandstorm. I can also tell you that we heard a lot of heavy artillery firing from near our position earlier today towards Baghdad. The artillery can range 18 miles or so, so they may well have been targeting Baghdad itself.
All right, so in other words, what we are looking at, according to Rick Leventhal, artillery had been used. Therefore, this may not be from the bombers or the fighters. This may actually be from ground fire from troops who are surrounding and some actually within Baghdad itself. Rick, from your position, can you hear anything?
I'm listening now. I may be able to make out some foams off in the background, but I don't think I can hear what you're seeing, David.
Okay, and once again, we just want to alert the viewers, this is from Abu Dhabi television. We don't know where they are striking. We don't know where this camera is set up. We do know.
Iraqis, you probably know by now, have put up what's described as little resistance as Army troops rumbled into Baghdad earlier today. But later, a missile strike did inflict casualties. CNN's Walter Rogers is embedded with the 307th Cavalry just outside Baghdad, and he filed this report just a short time ago.
The casualty toll on that Iraqi rocket attack against a U.S. Army command post is now considerably higher than previously reported. We're told there are 15 U.S. soldiers wounded, some of them quite seriously, and we're also told there were 4 dead in that attack. 2 of the dead are said to be journalists. What apparently happened was that the 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division command post was set up south of the city. This while other units of the 2nd Brigade rolled into Baghdad again this morning. An Iraqi approached the area with a missile, fired the missile, and took a terrible toll on U.S. soldiers, again with a single rocket. Of course, this is in response to, or the price that is paid for, more U.S. tanks rolling into Baghdad. CNN has been told by U.S. Army sources there are now 3 battalions of the 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry inside Baghdad, and those 3 battalions are not there on a temporary foray as in the previous 2 days. Those 3 battalions intend to stay in the city and occupy it, this according to U.S. Army sources. Walter Rogers, CNN, with the U.S. 7th Cavalry on the outskirts of Baghdad.
And as we know, the push into Baghdad is not without cost today. Several Americans have lost their lives. Let's talk with our Pentagon correspondent, Barbara Starr. What's the latest from there, Barbara?
Well, officials here are underscoring what Walt just said. The push to Baghdad, inside Baghdad, continues. Officials saying they are sending the message to the regime that they are no longer in charge, and it is expected the U.S. presence inside Baghdad will only grow. Now, earlier today here at the Pentagon, officials also laid out a plan saying that the U.S. military will gather evidence of war crimes in Iraq against both Americans and Iraqis, and that they are getting prepared to possibly prosecute both Iraqi military and regime leaders for those war crimes. Officials saying here they may hold military trials, or they may even bring Iraqis back to the United States for prosecution. Here's what one official had to say.
War criminals will be prosecuted. The day of Iraq's liberation will also be a day of justice. For any war crimes committed against U.S. personnel, our policy is that we will investigate and we will prosecute. We will also seek to prosecute, where feasible, those who committed or ordered war crimes against U.S. personnel during the Gulf War.
And officials identified Saddam Hussein Uday as their top suspect for possible war crimes prosecution. Wolf?
What about these Iraqis, these resistance group, approximately 600, Barbara, that have now been flown to southern Iraq, the Iraqi National Congress supporters, those opposed to Saddam Hussein? What's that mission all about?
Well, the Pentagon is now identifying these people. Let me give you the name. They are now going to be known as the Free Iraqi Fighter Force. Now, officials saying that this is more than the Iraqi National Congress, that there are people representing various groups, including Shia from the south and other groups inside Iraq, that these are fighters who are friendly to U.S. forces, who will be there working alongside U.S. Special Forces in southern Iraq, possibly becoming the nub, as it were, of a new Iraqi military force. But you are right, Wolf. This, so far, the most visible element of this new fighter force is Ahmed Chalabi, the head of the Iraqi National Congress, known to be a candidate by some elements of the Bush administration for a very prominent post in post-war Iraq, but also a lightning rod for a lot of controversy in the Arab world, because many feel he is basically someone supported only by the United States government. So it remains to be seen how much broad support he will have inside Iraq, but now these fighters are on scene. Wolf?
Barbara, yesterday when I interviewed General Peter Pace, the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he called the initial thrust into Baghdad proper an armored raid, in effect. There are more underway today, as we all know. What's the purpose? Will they stay there, or are they going to go back out to their more secure locations on the outskirts of the city?
Well, they are working their way through Baghdad sort of grid by grid, as it were, and there's absolutely no indication that they are planning to leave. All officials are saying, both publicly and privately, the U.S. presence will only grow, that there is still some concern about Iraqi fighting in the city. They are particularly concerned about the east side of Baghdad, a place called Saddam City, where there is a large Shia population. They don't believe they have control over that yet. They're very concerned about the Iraqi regime moving against the Shia inside Baghdad. But as for the rest of it, they are just going to continue to stay and take away further and further control from the Iraqi regime inside the capital. Wolf?
Barbara Starr at the Pentagon. We'll be checking back with you, of course, throughout the day. There will be a Pentagon briefing, I'm told, later in the day as well. CNN, of course, will have live coverage of that. In the meantime, there's more fallout developing from that incident over the weekend.